Okay, so another part of what I thought, maybe I thought it, I'm not sure, would be interesting. Yeah, I totally thought it. I'll take the blame. Was reading these books because I always have a rant. At some point, I lost my mind. No, scratch that. At multiple points, I lost my mind, and not in a cute way. Definitely not in a cute way. More in a, I think therefore I am sort of way. Trying to understand existence sort of way. So I reached out to philosophy, and then I got mad. Now, mind you, I am not a highly educated person. I paid for some college classes, and that's where it ended. If I took an IQ test online, it says I'm above average, but that's an IQ test online, so who's to trust that? Don't know if I can. There's that. So, if you deem it necessary to argue me while I read books about philosophy and get mad at them, please do so. However, I will be scared of you. But I will do my best to handle it, because apparently it's what I need to do. So, right. Let's see. The one I always get mad at is, somewhere. Where is it? I put it somewhere. Well, it's the, Mirror of Souls. It's not the Journey of Souls. No, that's Newton. Ah, there it is. So I'm gonna read you Marguerite Porete, something about souls. And I will be angry. Thank you. Is this glitching? Is it not glitching? Has it been glitching? It is glitching. Cool. Oh. I have been talking about it glitching. It's glitching. I didn't edit that, but that's normally the edit I put in, so I'm happy. Right. Oh, there was a screen I was supposed to read out for legality reasons. Anyways, oh, jeez. Okay, so it was something along the lines of I can utilize other people's works on the premise that I am not necessarily using it purely as it stands, but as educational and for educational purposes. Therein for commentary purposes. I do not claim the work of fiction. I did not put work into the work of fiction. Oh shit. I shouldn't claim that it's a work of fiction. It's not mine. I didn't do it. Cool. So it's Marguerite Porete, like I said, and The Mirror of Simple Souls. It was to give credit and reference. La 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 la. Editor-in-Chief Bernard McGinn. Editorial consistent Ewart H. Cousins. Hey, John E. Booty did something on this. I don't know what he did. Oh, there's a lot of names there. Johnny Booty, Joseph Dan, Albert de Blair, Louis Dupré, Roseanne Elder, Anne Fremantle, Carl Fried Froelich? I hope it's Frolic. Arthur Green, Stanley S. Harakas, Moshe Idel, Bishop Callistos of Dioclea, Jean Lochlear. Fuck me, I'm really bad at languages. Leclerc, George A. Maloney, Saeed Hassan Nasir, Heike E. Obermann, Raimundo Panicar, Jaroslav Palikan, Anne-Marie B. Schimmel. I don't know why I pronounced it that way. Apologies. Schimmel? Sandra A. M. Schneiders, Houston Smith, John R. Sommerfeld, David Steindl Rast, David Tracy, and the Reverend Rowan D. Williams. At which point, under his name, it's just Bishop of Monmouth, Wales. Actually, I don't know why I read out all of these, except to say that it's the editorial board. Oops. Translated and introduced by Ellen L. Babinski. Prefaced by Robert E. Lerner, though I never read those, and I don't know who does. Copyright was 93 by Ellen L. Babinski. Oh, cool, she got her own copyright. Guess who drank gin before reading it? Me! Jesus Christ. You know, I don't understand why there's a preface ever, other than to say that someone didn't want to produce their own work and just wanted to add on to someone else's work that they enjoyed. I put a bookmark in the introduction? Fuck that. I guess I did read the introduction. Well, I didn't mean to lie. I guess if I never got past the introduction, I may as well read it. On the 1st of June, 1310 in Paris, at the place the Griffe, à Begin, referred to as Pseudo Molière, was burned. A Begin. Okay. A Begin. Not at Begin. Referred to as Pseudo Molière, was burned at the stake as a relapsed heretic, having written a book filled with errors and heresies. I agree. Her comportment to the last was such that many were moved to tears at the sight of such piety. Insanity. Her name was Marguerite Porete, and her book, The Mirror of Simple Souls, written in Old French, had been condemned twice before she herself was committed to the flames. I don't think that she should have been burned alive, however, I do think that she was insane. Scholarly recognition of the importance of the Mirror of Simple Souls has been focused in several areas. Until recently, students of the heresy of the Free Spirit have regarded Marguerite Porete as the first apostle in France of the German sect of Brethren of the Free Spirit. How much of what people claim is like holy or not to be messed with is due to identity politics versus how much of it is because you honestly, truly believe and support whomever the hell you are supporting, you know, under which notion they took up. Like in the US, we have Columbus Day. And for at least 1,000 years, forgive me, I'm terrible at things, he's been celebrated, though when Columbus got back to Spain, they stripped him of his title and imprisoned him on the premise of being a horribly atrocious criminal for the acts committed when, quote-unquote, founding the New World. Here in the US, we wanted to keep people a part of the culture by saying, hey, we've got, or was he Italian? Spanish, Italian? I'm not sure. We've got a person of your peoples here, and represented internationally, celebrated internationally, therein your identity can be situated in such a person being recognized, despite them being disowned by their own country. How much of it is identity politics? Boop, boop, ba-doop. More recently, it has been proposed that some of the articles from the Council of Vienna, 1311 to 12, which condemned the Free Spirit heresy, I guess I'd have to look into what Free Spirit heresy is, were exerted from Marguerite's book. Oh, no. And that very little evidence for the heresy's existence prior to this council can be found in Germany. As a result of these investigations, Marguerite Porete was called one of the most important figures in the history of the heresy of the Free Spirit. That said because, but it didn't give much explanation for the reason why. After Marguerite Porete's authorship of The Mirror was established in 1946, and a critical edition was published, there were conflicting assessments of the Beguine's orthodoxy. Scholars interested in medieval mysticism include Marguerite's Mirror in their studies of late medieval mysticism. There's a lot of mysticism in the medieval times, but sure, go with her. Whatever makes you happy. In particular, students of Eckhart's thought have found the German Dominican's ideas about union with God, especially those in his vernacular sermons, to be strikingly similar to the French Beguine's. Scholars concerned to study medieval women's writing have found her text to be an intriguing contribution to their studies and anthologies. I'm just going to read the first page of the introduction. Jesus Christ, that's a lot of the introduction. Notes to the introduction. What page is this? That's 50 pages of the introduction. What are books? Are they mostly introduction? Because that's what it's coming across as. Oh, and there's a prologue. We're fucked. Well, it's okay. There's so much. How long? These chapters are 1 page. Well, if people realize they could get away with that, I'm sure people do. There are a lot of books written. Never mind. Okay. It starts off. You who would read this book, if you indeed wish to grasp it, think about what you say. Oh no, I have fucked up from the start. For it is very difficult to comprehend. Is it? Everything is, apparently. That's what most prologues say in order to clap themselves on the shoulder and compliment their own ego. Humility. Who is keeper of the treasury of knowledge. Bullshit! And the mother of other virtues must overtake you. Eat my shorts. Theologians and other clerks, you will not have the intellect for it. That's not humility. No matter how brilliant your abilities, if you do not proceed humbly. I don't think humility makes up for lack of intelligence, but go on. And may love and faith together cause you to rise above reason. Oh no! You're supposed to understand it without utilization of reason? Since they are the ladies of the house. What? I don't think I ever got past the prologue. The prologue made me so mad. Hold on. Okay. Even reason witnesses in the 13th chapter of this book. What? Why so specific? Only the 13th chapter, not the rest of them? There's 100 and something chapters. And with no shame about it. Oh, Jesus. That makes it holier? That love and faith make her live, and she does not free herself from them. For they have lordship over her, which is why she must humble herself. Excuse me, reason should not humble herself. reason should be fully within her right to provoke herself at any goddamn place she feels the need to do so. Reason is wholly within her right to exist as she is, with no lord needing to reside over her. That is bullshit. Hey, listen to us, but don't process what we're saying. That's how that interprets. You just made it sound fancy. Humble then your wisdom, fuck you, which is based on reason. And place all your fidelity, excuse me, I don't owe you my fidelity, in those things which are given by love, illuminated through faith. You know, religion rules through blind faith. Don't think for yourself. Don't do it. Just don't do it. It's not advisable. Don't do it. And thus you will understand this book. You'll only understand this book if you can't process information, which makes the soul live by love. That's shitty. You shouldn't declare that love exists outside of reason and wisdom. That is shitty. That's how you get abuse. What chapter 1 is the prologue? Who did this? Soul, touched by God and removed from sin at the first stage of grace, is carried by divine graces to the 7th stage of grace. Wow. No indication of what the fuck that means is given. I'm sure it would have been given in, the introduction. I may have to go back and read that. I won't. So, this indicates that there are multiple stages of grace. I guess it's like grief, where you go through stages. I can allow that. That makes logical sense. Though it does not indicate what those stages are. So, I only half allow it. Okay, and in the 7th stage of grace, the state of soul possesses the fullness of, and the soul is a her, of her perfection through divine fruition in the land of life. That's obtuse. So the 7th stage is the best place to be. Everybody wants to be there because that's when you are a full person. Fully perfect. But only in the land of life. If you exist in the 7th stage in the land of death, it leaves you to question, what your existence is. If it's perfect at all. Probably not, right? What is mythology? Under what logic does it exist? Here, love speaks. Who is love? We do not know, though it is capitalized, so it's a proper noun, at which point it is its own existence. As for you actives and contemplatives, active in the religion and contemplative, like you think about it, but don't participate, and perhaps those annihilated by true love. Why are people annihilated by it? What happened? You will hear some powers of pure love, of noble love, of the high love, of the unencumbered soul. How the Holy Spirit has placed his sail in her, as if she were his ship. I pray you, by love, says love, that you hear through great effort of the subtle intellect within you and through great diligence, for otherwise all those who hear it will grasp at it badly, if they are not of this kind. Okay. Religious text normally has the ability to to exert words without definition, where in scientific text or philosophical text, which is, I guess, a sort of science, pseudoscience, it aims to set out the definitions before it aims to string you along its logic. Religious just says get in the mindset to be able to understand my logic or fuck off. And that's the whole first paragraph, though it says it by insinuating that it is through love, which is nice, but they didn't define what love is here, other than a proper noun. So unless you exist through this existence entirely outside of your own, you won't be able to understand this. Which excludes anybody that has not made love their religion. And, you know, it is in evangelical church, you're told God is love. In a lot of non-denominational churches, you're told God is love. And in a lot of spiritual practices, non-related to religion, you're told God is love. But that is not the only religion practiced in the world, and that is not the only God praised in the world. You know, in other religions, I'm certain as all hell there is a God of hatred. So unless you praise exactly this God and only this God, not the God of everything, not the Christian God, though this is filed as Christian belief, it has to be the God of love. You will not be able to understand this. So good luck. Thus listen with humility to a little exemplum of love in the world, and listen to it as a parallel to divine love. And we assume exemplum means example. Once upon a time there was a maiden, daughter of a king, of great heart and nobility, and also of noble character, and she lived in a far-off land. So it happened that this maiden heard tell of the great gentle courtesy and nobility of the king. Whoa. She is born to the king and she only hears of the king? No, it's a different king, Alexander. And very soon, her will loved him. Her will loved him? She did not love him, but her will loved him, because of the great renown of his gentility. I guess that's a good enough reason. But this maiden was so far from this great lord, in whom she had fixed her love from herself, that she was able neither to see him nor to have him. Thus she was inconsolable in herself, for no love except this one would be sufficient for her. When she saw that this faraway love, who was so close within her, was so far outside of her, repeat yourself one more time. She thought to herself that she would comfort her melancholy by imagining some figure of her love, by whom she was continually wounded in heart. That sounds insane. I cannot have what I want, so I will imagine that that want is made physical in front of me. But in it being made physical in front of me through my imagination, I will staple to it that it hurts me. That is profound masochism. That is holy masochism, and you see that in a lot of saints, so good on her for being saintly. And so she had an image painted which would represent the semblance of the king she loved, an image as close as possible to that which presented itself to her in her love for him, and in the affection of the love which captured her. And by means of this image with her other habits, she dreamed of the king. Holy shit. Okay, so I didn't even make it through the prologue. I don't know if you can... I'm picking this up. I didn't make it through the prologue, and I have a rant. Holy. So there's this subject that exists, where when you make an ideal out of something, or you make an ideal out of someone, you expect them to uphold said ideal. And you exist, in your own world normally, right? until you interact with someone else, and then your world interacts with theirs. But if you are, like in this princess's case, or in many people's cases, never interacting with an individual, then you have thusly created an ideal of them that is not visited by any reality. It is all absurdity. It is all hinged on fabrication, based on what you can identify you want. Meaning, the only thing that you love about whatever the fuck you've created an ideal of is the image of it. Everything else you've built up of your own accord. That is so incredibly disrespectful. Normally, and not all the time, but very normally, when an ideal is not met, there is an incredible interaction of violence. The individual that has created this ideal that has gone unmet feels let down. And they refuse, normally, to admit that they've been let down by their own imagination, their own fabrication. Instead, they place the blame on an outside source, on the person by whom they fabricated, on the individual, on the subject matter by which they fabricated this ideal. Never holding themselves accountable for what they have done. And therein the violence that they feel, this incredible letdown, is taken out on the other party who had nothing to do with anything going on. As though it is somehow their fault that an individual outside of their reality, outside of their world existing, had an imagination, and you could not, they could not, it could not meet it. That's irresponsible, that's fucked up. And I think a large majority of humanity does it. And I don't like that they do it. And I don't think anybody should like that. Anybody does that. You know, everybody wants everybody else to pay for their actions and then turns around and they don't take accountability for their own. You expect other people to be your idea of perfect. You expect other things to be your idea of perfect. Life is subjective. Not taking that into consideration is irresponsible. Beep-a-deep boop. So this whole prologue is supposed to premise, you know, the intelligence of this book. And the intelligence is premised on an ideal. And probably unmet, because God hasn't come to Earth yet, has he? Or it, sorry. I was brought up non-denominational. My bad. God hasn't come to Earth yet, has it? Boop boop. Soul. It just says soul in italics. I don't know what that means. Oh, I guess this is the communication of the soul. In truly similar fashion, speaks the soul who had this book written. Whoa. Okay. That's not a full sentence, and holy shit does it say a lot. Okay, so that's what in modern day psychology would be considered multiple personality disorder, or dissociative personality disorder. You have understood that the personification of self exists outside of the creation of soul. That the soul steers the body and the self is entirely separate. Where many, many spiritual practices throughout the world outside of Christianity teach that the practices of the body visit themselves upon the growth of the soul. The soul is not without visitation from the mind and the body. without interaction. This separates it entirely. The soul who had this book written, I tell you of such a thing. I heard tell of a king of great power, who was by gentle courtesy and by very great courtesy of nobility, and this word I don't know, it's like largesse, a noble Alexander. But he was so far from me, and I from him, that I did not know how to take comfort for myself. And for the sake of my memory of him, he gave me this book, which makes present in some fashion his love itself. But it is no hindrance that I have his image, for it is not true that I am in a strange land, and far from the palace where the very noble friends of this lord dwell, who are completely pure, perfect, and free through the gifts of this king with whom they remain. So this, I understand that this is supposed to be metaphorical of the individual and their relationship with God. However, this individual said that they have access to those who have access to God. And, that is heavily, heavily dependent on the religion that you believe in. If you believe in Catholicism, then you have to go through 1 to 1,000 different idols in order to be able to translate your message to God. Jesus died for our sins, Mary translates the message. Or depending on the type of message or the type of dealing you want in your life, you go through a specific saint who died for a specific reason or lived for a specific reason. And that's only Catholicism. Christianity teaches, follow Christ's teachings. That's what it says. However, the majority of Christianity created an idol of Jesus, and you go through Jesus to get to God. The source was always supposed to be God. This exists outside of both of the main religions, where it then creates an idol to the idol, saying you go through the people that can access the idol that can access God. In that, the king was named Alexander. I would have to assume. Though again, uneducated, so fight me. Though maybe, she gave the name Alexander because Alexander the king was the Great, and that was the closest the peoples of the time could understand greatness and holiness. Could be, at which point it just puts her one idol away. Not like how we all are away from Kevin Bacon's 7 degrees of separation. She has only 1 degree. Lucky her. So yeah, metaphorically, she's just supposed to be able to access God through another existence. Though, again, separate from Mary and Jesus, leaving me to believe that it has to do with the saints. That she's more inclined to pray to saints than she is to Mary. And I wasn't raised Catholic, though I do think that there is something about Catholicism where Mother Mary is like a figurehead specifically for femininity. And in Mary's proposed virginity, there is a sort of untouched holiness. And therein, I think it is more, not virtuous, but polite to go through a saint, maybe. It all has to do with nobility and how people understood they made claims to the court of nobility. They framed their gods around such state of affairs. So this is presumably then from the eyes of someone who had no... How do you say that? There's a word for it, but where you are not valuable in societal eyes, due to sexism. Marguerite Porete was a woman at the time, and I do believe that she was a single woman in something akin to a nunnery, because, unmarried, unwed, and no children to take care of her. And I do think that lessened the significance or the value of the individual for the time of, 1100 AD. Or BCE, or however, but AD works. Don't know why the rant, I forgot. Oh, it's just heartbreaking, I guess. The ideal is made of God. The unknowing is made of God. And you can only access this unknowing through God's friends. And because you're made insignificant by humanity, you presume thereafter that God has made you also likewise insignificant. And so the closest you can get to God is this imagination you created. Like, wow. Not only heartbreaking, delusional, and Jesus. That's just, I said Jesus. Sad. I want to say not only heartbreaking, and then I throw in synonyms. Like that's supposed to derail the not only heartbreaking thing. Whoops. I guess it's the rant is meant to stress the lack of identity the individual, the author, holds, lack of significance they have in themselves. Oh, but then the next bit is from the author rather than the soul. Author, thus we shall tell you how our Lord is not at all freed from love. Words are significant, dude. I get that this is like 1100. My hand is cramping. I totally respect that this is 1100 and in France, and they're in a translation. Lord is supposed to be like lord over something. It's a hierarchical status. And you've just put that hierarchical status under a different hierarchy, under a ruling of another status. Lord is capitalized as well as love is capitalized, thus giving them each their own existence. So the Lord, presumably God, is ruled by love, which is its own existence. I don't think people think things through. But love is from him for us. That is wonky. Okay. So Lord God is ruled by an existence called love. But that existence called love comes from God. Like you gave birth to a kid and that kid runs the house. So that the little ones might be able to hear it by means of you. Excuse me, no. You just put a responsibility onto me and I don't know you. For love can do everything without any misdeed. That's irrelevant to the little ones hearing anything from me because love came from God and rules over it. What? Love can do everything without any misdeed. Because love is perfect, I am to take on a responsibility without having been spoken to about said responsibility where it concerns leading individuals younger than myself. Who gave me that? That they obviously don't know me. Rude. And thus love speaks for your sake, not mine. What? such a subjective existence. Every person measures love by a different, action, by a different understanding. Is love a subjective notion or an objective notion? And if it's objective, I think you need to define it. And if you cannot define it, then it remains subjective. And if it remains subjective, then how can it speak for my subjective sake to others who are subjective in their own right? It is bilingual? Sorry, that was stupid. There are 7 stages of noble being from which a creature receives being. Okay, so is this nobility of being, is that related to the 7 stages of grace, where the 7th stage is perfection? Or are we just throwing out terminology and not defining it because that's fun? From which a creature receives being. So the soul, capitalized, its own existence, disposes herself, now gendered, to all the stages before she comes to perfect being. Okay, so 7 stages of noble being is synonymous with the 7 stages of grace. If someone is granted grace, I don't think that's synonymous with being granted nobility. None of the nobles currently existing are graceful. Sorry. Graceful maybe. Gracious? No. And we will tell you how before this book ends. Oh, thank God. I should have finished that before I went on a rant. I hate this book so much. So that was the prologue of Mirror of Simple Souls, written by Marguerite Porete and published by or copyright by Ellen L. Babinski. Wow.